Kevin, one of the audience members, Kelly, asked, what are the top 5 things organizations should consider before implementing RPA in their organization today?
One would be kind of your overall people strategy, both how are you actually going to engage your workforce with the use of the technology, and how are you going to make sure you have the talent to actually build this technology? Governance and risk, how are you going to make sure the technology actually functions over the long term? You can deal with change management, you can deal with some of the technical brittleness issues and some of the production support challenges, and just making sure, from an overall structural perspective, this is improving your environment, not making it more complicated. Process intelligence, how do you actually discover what it is that you do as an organization? One of the biggest eye-opening experiences anytime we do an RPA engagement with a client is how we realize that just even a basic kind of well understood function, the transparency that sits behind what people actually do in the trenches day to day for that function isn't as well known or is inconsistent across multiple people performing the same function. Figuring out from a benefits case perspective, what outcomes are you actually going after? From the previous point I made around cost, it's not all about cost takeout, and that's a really important thing. You have to think about what you're actually trying to achieve, how you actually want your function to run as this technology gets implemented, both in the short term and the long term, and understanding kind of the different levers between cost, resiliency, experience, control, other benefits, and actually having ways to measure that are more clear than just kind of somewhat ambiguous. We're going to take 20% or 30% of our costs out. And then the final part is just figuring out from a overall kind of automation program structure. If you look at this more as an automation strategy, not as an RPA strategy, and look at RPA as a accelerator or a catalyst, thinking about how you want your long-term effort to work. I think Tyler made a really good point around kind of using, if I interpreted it correctly, kind of using RPA almost as an ideation mechanism for kind of bigger ideas that could result. And I think that's a really important aspect from the perspective of thinking through kind of a broader automation strategy as your toolkit becomes bigger, as the RPA firms build more features into their tools, as potential partnerships or consolidation happens in the software space. The kind of term automation is going to be a lot more expansive, where RPA is just a starter point. So starting to think through how's that going to work and what's our long-term approach to this. If you notice, everything I said, we didn't really talk about RPA as a technology, right? We're kind of assuming, I think it's been proven the technology works. I think it provides a lot of the benefits that Phil talked about, but it's really kind of putting together all those structural pieces behind to enable success.
Yeah, I can add an extra piece to that, which is stop trying to view RPA as some kind of workaround to avoid engaging with IT. We've seen, I think, far too many projects fall apart because IT weren't engaged early on, and a lot of these applications are not viewed as enterprise grade until the IT guys understand it better and actually can look at it from a broader perspective, particularly when you're dealing with low code, on how this fits in with database schemas, other systems, and that sort of thing. So the more you can get IT on board with you as you go through this, I think the more success you will have longer term in getting adoption, getting scale, and getting better participation across areas and businesses. I've seen some real success where the CIO himself or herself have got involved and got very excited on board with this. And I think stop trying to work around technology, try and work with those people, because that will ultimately lead to better cooperation, better scale, better success, and better industrialization.
Tyler, is there anything that you see that should be essential for an organization looking to implement RPA today, or do you actually think there's a risk of a shift backwards, or the pendulum swinging in a different direction for some organizations, for them to, on occasion, go away from some automation for a small time period?
So no, I don't think this is going to go away. To the point, I think that this is an evolutionary technology. This is at a phase of, evolution towards the potential of automation, higher value delivery. If the pendulum will swing on anything, I don't see it swinging so much on the tech as much as to the point I think or to the point that Kevin had made around the governance models, the standards that exist, the establishment of practices, centers of excellence that need to probably be stood up within organizations, the learning that has to come from this. So where it will swing will be, standing up a lot of these, good centers, standing up, do we want to leverage, right, as an organization, lean startup principles to kind of test, refine, implement the processes, create standards for an organization, ensure that there's training, support, ensure to the point that was made, change management being so important, I think. And what will change over time is going to be kind of how processes that support this sort of technology and automation are going to evolve. How do we lean down? How do we become more agile? How do we focus on developing and leveraging this sort of technology to build those minimum viable products or to test hypotheses? So I think that that's what becomes most important, and that's the sort of change that I see that would likely continue to take place. I think an important message that I like to think of when it comes to implementing any of this is to promote adoption, to promote challenges, and to understand the value of this sort of technology in any practice for the community that you're part of. Success begets success, right? And a big part of, I think, the process of change, process of change is the purpose, right? For to be very McLuhanist.